Welcome to another Kingdom Voice broadcast with Apostle Lance Bellany, where faith meets action and intimacy with God comes alive in our daily walk. We are so thankful you joined us today. Your presence here is not by accident. It is part of God's divine appointment for your life. The kingdom of God is advancing, and you have a part in it. This broadcast is about equipping you, the believer, with truths of the kingdom, spiritual insight, and kingdom strategies to help you live with purpose, power, and victory. Each time we gather here, we explore the living word, uncover kingdom principles, and apply them to the challenges we face in our families, communities, and callings. Whether you're at home, at work, or on the move, this moment is set apart to connect and share our journey together and align with Elohim. So get ready to renew your mind and strengthen your spirit, because today, God will shift your perspective, fuel your faith, and launch you into your next season. Now, let's lean in, expect to receive, and prepare to be transformed. Here's Apostle Lance Bellany.
That's why there's no audio, is because I'm on mute. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks, Abdel. I appreciate that, brother. So let me kind of back up a little bit now since I had no audio. Let me back up a little bit. Thanks, Sean. I really appreciate you joining. I want to say that this idea of taxing the rich, I want to talk about this. I want to discuss this because I think the kingdom speaks about this in a very emphatic way. So I want to cover this from the perspective of, what the biblical position is, what the kingdom position is, and what I think the position of many social justice warriors is around this issue of taxing the rich. Where does it come from? Why do we believe that we need to tax the rich? And again, I'm going to give what I believe is the most important point of this presentation today, and that is the kingdom perspective on this issue. So I want to take a few minutes and address a couple of things around this issue. Number one, it is a political hot topic today. You hear many of the political the politicians talk about we need to tax the rich. We need to everybody needs to pay their fair share, and all of that type of rhetoric around this issue of taxation. And it like many things, it always gets hijacked by people that believe that they can get a political, economical advantage over other people. They hijack what is a what could be a legitimate grievance of if you will, and they hijack it and turn it into something that it was never meant to be, and you end up with something that's bastardized, that's not even recognizable by the original argument that was being put forward. And so this idea of tax the rich is one of those ideas. I think everyone from a taxation standpoint should pay what is legally obligated for them to pay. Okay. But there is this idea somehow that some people owe more than other people because they have more than other people. Okay. And I want to address that, and I want to deal with that. But as I said at the very outset, I want to deal with it from multiple perspectives. I want to deal with it from what does the Bible have to say around this idea of taxing the rich? Okay. What is the biblical perspective on taxing the rich? And allow me, if you will, bear with me here. I want to share a couple of things. Allow me, if you will, to just kind of ground us on the basic um, presentation that I want to make today. Okay, so I want to deal with two things here. Oops. I want to deal with two things here. Number one, Second Thessalonians, actually the first part of the chapter, but I want to deal with verses 6 through 13, and I'm going to read the whole thing for us. But I want to highlight verse number 10. For even when we were with you, this we commanded you, that if any would not work, neither should he eat. That's Second Thessalonians chapter 3, verses 6, verse 10. But let's take a minute from Second Thessalonians and let's read the entire chapter, Second Thessalonians chapter 3. Okay. And let's start at verse number, I hope you can read that on the screen. Let's start at verse number 1, verse number 6. We command you, brethren, in the name of our Lord that you withdraw yourselves from every brother that walketh disorderly and not after the tradition which he received of us. For yourselves know how ye ought to follow us. For we behaved not ourselves disorderly among you, neither did we eat any man's bread for nothing, but wrought with labor and travail night and day, that we might not be chargeable to any man of you, not because we have not power, but to make ourselves an example unto you to follow us. For even when we were with you, this we commanded you, that if any would not work, neither should he eat. For we hear that there are some which walk among you disorderly, working not at all, but are busybodies. Now, them that are such we command and exhort by the Lord, that with quietness they work and eat what? Not somebody else's bread, but their own bread. Okay. So I want to point that out about taxing the rich. I'm laying the foundation here from a biblical standpoint of this idea of taxing the rich. Okay. Then I want to go over to Luke chapter 16, verses 1 through 11. And I want to focus on verse number 9. And I say unto you, make to yourselves friends of the mammon of unrighteousness. Now listen, this is what is attributed to the Lord as having said to his disciples. And I say unto you, make to yourselves friends of the mammon of unrighteousness, that when you fall or fail, they may receive you into everlasting habitations. Now, it's interesting that the Lord is making reference to this idea of befriending people with, quote, the unrighteous mammon, or the mammon of unrighteousness. Now, if I'm to interpret that correctly, mammon is money, and unrighteous mammon is money held by people that are not born again, that are not a part of the kingdom. So it's interesting to hear the Lord advocate that we need to understand that people of means can support the needs and the help others that may be in need. But there is a catch to the idea, and that is you need to go befriend them. You need to go avail yourselves to them in such a way that they can befriend you. Not some coercive take away from them, but I digress and get into something way before I want to. But let's read what was being said. And in essence, let's go to Luke chapter 16, verses 1 through 11. Let me get there right quick. Luke chapter 16, verses 1 through 11. Let's read what the account says. And he said unto his disciples, there was a certain rich man which had a steward, and the same was accused unto him that he had wasted his goods. The steward wasted what was given to him to be the caretaker of. And he called him and said unto him, how is it that I hear this of thee? Give an account of thy stewardship, for thou mayest be no longer steward. Then the steward said unto him, what shall I do? For my Lord taketh away from me the stewardship. I cannot dig, and to beg I am ashamed. I am resolved what to do, that when I am put out of the stewardship, they may receive me into their houses. So he called every one of his Lord's debtors unto him, and said unto the first, how much owest thou unto my Lord? And he said, and 100 measures of oil. And he said unto him, take thy bill, sit down quickly, and write half of that, 50. And he said unto another, how much owest thou? And he said, 100 measures of wheat. And he said unto him, take and write thy bill 80. I don't know quite exactly what 80 is against 100, but it sounds like a quarter. I don't know. I may miss that. And the Lord commended the unjust steward, and he because he had done wisely. For the children of this world are in their generation wiser than the children of light. And I say unto you, make to yourselves friends of the mammon of unrighteousness, that when ye fail, they may receive you into everlasting habitations. He that is faithful in that which is least is faithful also in the much, and that is he that is unjust in the least is unjust also in the much. If therefore ye have not been faithful in the unrighteous mammon, who will commit to you the trust of true riches? Now, I wanted to read that, and I wanted to bring that to light, because I wanted to share with you and start the discussion around this whole idea of taxing the rich. I've said on this broadcast that capitalism, free enterprise, is the economic system of the kingdom. Many people push back on me. Many people eviscerated that comment because they don't believe that capitalism is the economic system of the kingdom of heaven. Okay? So I've just read to you two passages of scripture that came from the biblical account. Okay? I haven't even started talking about the kingdom account yet, but from the biblical account. That if a man doesn't work, then he should not eat. Number two, be wise with the way you handle people of means, and be wise with the way you handle the things that have been given to your responsibility. Okay? That's free enterprise. That's a component of free enterprise. Okay? If I have something of value, let me market that value to others that may be in need. Let them purchase that value from me. Now we exchange or trade, and that exchange or trade enriches the person that is receiving my services or goods, and I am enriched by the payment that they have given to me for those services or goods. That is free enterprise. That is capitalism. Okay. All right. Now, many people bemoan capitalism because of greed. Okay. The opposite of greed is waste. So when you look at capitalism, I'm not coerced, compelled, forced to buy anything from anyone at any price. No one is making me do that. For example, if I want to go out to eat and I choose a restaurant that has certain prices, no one is forcing me to go into that restaurant, pay those prices, eat that meal and pay the price for that meal. No one is forcing me to do that, because I could easily choose to go to a lesser expensive restaurant, be nourished, mind you, all the same, for a much lesser price than what the other restaurant is asking me to pay. That is capitalism. That is free enterprise. That is the system that the kingdom of heaven is based upon. The kingdom isn't based upon that, but that has been adopted by the kingdom of heaven. Capitalism and free enterprise. So, Apostle, where does this whole idea of taxing the rich come from? What's the emphasis of this? And I want to talk about that. Taxing the rich comes from the antithesis of 2 Thessalonians 3:6-13. For when For even when we were with you, we commanded you that if any work not, neither should he eat. The poor, the indigent, and the needy, that is a different conversation than those that will not, do not, doesn't want to work. Okay? When we look at capitalism and when we look at free enterprise and consider this idea of taxing the rich, we now want to not allow the rich to give and to freely distribute what they think is a philanthropic a gesture on their part, or a largesse gesture on their part. We now are coercing, compelling, mandating people take, not take there and give it, but take it from them and distribute it the way we want to distribute it. That's not free enterprise. That's not capitalism. That is not the kingdom way of doing things. But yet so many people are buying into this idea that taxing the rich is going to somehow make it better for the poor. But what they really are after is penalizing the rich for getting that rich, because they believe in many instances, if you'll just simply listen to what they are advocating, what they believe is that the rich got what they got by some type of ill-gotten means. And therein lies the problem. Okay? I want to deal with several fundamental problems that, quote, taxing the rich represent. Okay? Several fundamental problems. Problem number one, it is a race to the bottom. It ultimately lands everyone at the bottom. When you take from those of means to give to those of lesser means. Okay? It sounds good, but it is a race to the bottom where ultimately everybody has nothing. Here's how that works. If I work hard to earn what I have, someone else does nothing and they get a portion of what I have. And so now the purist would say, well, you just gave a small portion of what you have to someone else. Okay, fine. But eventually that someone else becomes 2, 3, 4, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, 500,000 different people. So guess what they're now going to do? We don't have enough, so we're going to take more of what the rich have and give more to what the poor need. Well, guess what you think is going to happen? The same thing that happened when it went from 1 to 500,000, it'll go from 500,000 to 100 million. Because when you incentivize lazy, unproductive behavior, now don't eviscerate me for making and using the term lazy, because I'm going to explain that in just a minute. But when you incentivize lack or poor or undesirable behavior, guess what you're going to get? You're going to get more of that type of behavior. So if I'm rewarding people for doing nothing by taking from people who have work to give to them, guess what I'm going to get? I'm going to get more of them. Why? Because when people by nature find out that I can get something for doing nothing, guess what you're going to get more of? People doing nothing. Why? Because they can get something while they're doing nothing. More people are willing to live in squalor and poor means with people giving them something than there are people that are willing to work hard, sacrifice, go without, do without, while they're advancing themselves. You say, Apostle, how can you make that statement? It's a simple statement to make. Nothing hard about it. Just look at human nature. Look at creation. Look at the way people are, that people naturally behave. How many people are built like Mr. Atlas? Not very many. How many can be? Untold thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions can look like him. But why don't they? Because they don't have the discipline, the desire, or the work ethic to put in to be, and the sacrifice to discipline themselves to look like that. So you only have a few people that have paid the price to look like that. The same with wealth. How many people are willing to put everything on the line, to sacrifice, to take the chance to become wealthy? Not many. Most people would rather go work a job. But guess who they're working for? The guy, the young lady that did make that sacrifice. You're always going to have those that are willing to do that extra to get ahead. You're always going to have that majority in the middle that's willing to do enough to live comfortably. You're always going to have that group that doesn't want to do anything. Listen to me. That doesn't want to do anything, but they want to eat. They want to survive. They want to have their needs met. You're always going to have that crowd. Here is where taxing the rich takes that out of the natural order and balance and skews it to where everybody ends up at the bottom. That's the problem with taxing, air quotes, taxing the rich. You ultimately land everyone at the bottom. Point number 2. It incentivizes more unproductive behavior. I talked about that just a second ago. When you look at taxing the rich, taking from those of means, giving to those of lesser means, you incentivize more people in the lesser means because they can get something for doing nothing. And now that number grows. And so you need more resources. So you go back to the people of means and take more of what they have until eventually I now disincentivize people from being productive because you're taking from them what they have and you're giving to people that are doing nothing or not that are unwilling to work. And now I find myself taking more and more and giving more and more. But I want to deal with something that I think is the proverbial elephant in the room, and that is greed on the part of the wealthy, right? And waste on the part of those who want to take from the rich to give to the poor. How many times in this modern society that we live in have we heard about waste, fraud, and abuse? Now, they took my tax dollars, your tax dollars, and they took the wealth from the riches from the wealthy, and they supposedly gave it to the poor. Well, when you start to dig into where the money that they took went, you realize that most, and I'm not even ashamed of saying most of the money they took did not end up where they said they wanted to send it, to the poor. It ended up with someone in the fraud, waste, and abuse category, taking money and doing things with it that did not benefit the poor. How can, and I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. Will do, Leonard. How can someone spend $1.5 billion? Listen to me closely. $1.5 billion. And the homeless population in your community grows exponentially after you've already spent $1.5 billion. Greed, waste, fraud, excuse me, not greed, but waste, fraud, and abuse. The money was there. We can account for where the money came from and how much money came in. What we cannot account for is what happened with the money that came in. Taxing the rich. It incentivizes more unproductive behavior. Okay? That's what taxing the rich does. It incentivizes behavior that is not productive and doesn't add to anything in the community. Okay? It stifles creativity and innovation. You know where creativity and innovation comes from? It comes from people that are driven, people that are productive, people that are creative, whether it's in the arts, or whether it is in science, technology, math, whether it is in medicine, whether it is in technology. Those people have created, developed an idea, created a technology, a technique, a sound, a look. They develop that has appeal to the masses. And so they now market and sell their ideas. And as a result, they are compensated for that. I'll give you two examples of the arts. Taylor Swift has become a billionaire entertainer. Good for her. Good for her. Elon Musk has become a trillionaire technical entrepreneur. Good for him. Should they be philanthropic? That's their business. Can they be philanthropic? Absolutely, because they have the means that they can do it. The difference between taxing the rich and allowing the rich to be philanthropic is one says, you don't get to choose what you do with your money. I will choose what you do with your money. The other says, no, I will decide who I want to give it to, how much I want to give, and when I want to give. That's the kingdom model. The worldly model says, nope, you don't get to decide. I'm going to take it from you by taxing you, and then I'm going to decide what to give and who to give it to and when to give it and how much to give. And that's how you end up $30 trillion in debt as a nation when you've taken in enough money to feed the world 3 times over, to take care of the world's needs 3 times over. The problem is that the money didn't go to the things that the taxes were designed for. The money went to things that someone decided was better than what the real need was all about. I'm just trying to get you to understand that taxing the rich, this whole idea that's floating around our community now, our politics now, is not going to lead us to what you think it is going to do. It never has, it never will, and I'm going to go on record and say it cannot. Human nature will not allow it to. Okay? Human nature will not allow it to. And that's the problem with waste, fraud, and abuse. It stifles creativity. And guess what happens? Now, this idea of stifling creativity doesn't mean that creativity will stop. It can also mean that creativity will leave your community. If you don't want to treat me and fairly allow me to continue to create amongst you, then I will leave you and go somewhere else. That's what you see. You see a lot of companies leaving certain areas, coming to other areas. Why? Because they are being allowed to continue their creativity and not be penalized financially for doing so. Whereas where they're leaving was threatening, and many instances were implementing and executing all kinds of taxation and all kinds of regulations and penalties and all of this for the wealth that they were creating for other people. If a man doesn't work, don't let him eat. That's my words. That's not the biblical account, but that's my translation of it. If he doesn't want to work, don't let him eat. I got a few more minutes to finish up. Allow me here in just a minute. The rich will pack up and leave for more favorable conditions. I'm going to give you a couple of examples. We have the city of Seattle, where there is now this big push to tax the rich. You have New York City, the center of, for those of you that live in the Texas area in the South, you know that Texas is the center of energy for the world. If there's anything about energy that has global implications, you can find some type of office for that, if not the corporate office here in Texas, and more in particular in Houston, Texas. Okay. New York is the same way for finance. Seattle and Oregon and Northern California was the same way for tech entrepreneurism. Okay. These were hubs for people that wanted to huddle around those particular industrial sectors. Okay. So you have in Seattle now, and now in New York, two government approaches that are saying, tax the rich. We want to tax the rich to take what they have to give to the needy. Okay. Same thing in New York City, same thing in Seattle. And guess what's happening in both of those communities? Major financial and financial wealth is leaving the city, going to more favorable locations where they can continue their work, continue their development, continue their wealth building without the threat of someone wanting to take what they're creating and distribute it the way that they want. Okay? You cannot tax the rich and expect the rich just to sit there and let you take their wealth. It's not going to happen. I'll give you another example of within the community. You have someone of means growing up in the community, and then all of a sudden the community gets overrun with thieves and vandals and what have you, and they start to tear up the community and so forth. Okay, guess what the rich person is going to do? The person of means. They're going to pack up their family. They're going to put their house on the market to sell it, and they will even take a loss on their home just to get out of there, and then they'll go build their wealth somewhere else. Okay, guess what's going to happen to the people who can't do that? They're going to have to sit there and suffer that, and then it's going to get worse and worse and worse until eventually it'll turn into a hellhole. The rich will pack up and leave for more favorable conditions, whether that is living conditions, economic conditions, working conditions, business climate. They will pack up and leave. And what you're left with are those that don't want to do anything, but will prey, P-R-E-Y, prey on the poor. And that's what you have with urban flight. Okay. And that's what you have with inner city migration. People leaving the inner city of means, leaving the inner city, going to places that are more favorable for them. You have to incentivize the wealth, the productivity that you want to see more of, that you want to encourage. You have to incentivize that and disincentivize or decentivize, I don't know if that's the right word, that which you don't want to see. One more, get ready to start to wrap it up. Name a single person, single poor person that you know. Name one. Poor. I'm not talking about people that are in the middle class, that I'm talking about people that are homeless, that are poor, and so forth, that has added to anything to the welfare of the community. Added, I didn't say consume it, but added to the welfare of the community. Okay? We have to learn how to incentivize that which we want more of and de-incentivize that which we want less of. Because right now, this idea of taxing the rich is only going to drive us, put us on a course to the bottom. We will never find the wealth, the prosperity that they say they're going to give, that they say they're going to create by taking money from people who are earning it to give to people who have not earned it. I don't care what the emotional driver is. If I don't allow the rich to give of their free volition, of their own volition, to the concerns and to the social needs that they feel are important to them, then what you will find yourself doing is incentivizing poor behavior, unproductive behavior. Okay. So, as we get ready to close, I said capitalism was the economic system of the kingdom of heaven. And I believe that, and I steadfastly stand behind that statement for a couple of reasons. Number one, I believe that is what Mother told me. And number two, I've not heard any argument against capitalism that would allow it to be, allow me to believe that it is not the system that the kingdom promotes. Okay. There are multiple social systems out there, government or economic systems out there. There's communism, there's socialism, there is capitalism, government-wise, there is democracy, there is fascism, there, of course, we know Nazism. You have all of these isms out there, and capitalism. And by the way, for those of us that don't quite yet understand the difference between democracy and a democratic republic, okay, do a little research on that to get an understanding. Okay, we live in a democratic republic. Okay. Here in the United States of America. And by the way, again, as I close and start to wrap up, we're celebrating 250 years of our nation's existence. 250, the 250th birthday of our nation. In 1776, when we declared independence from the British monarchy. And I've been doing a lot of reading and a lot of research on the formation of this. And I find it extremely interesting, number one, and extremely insightful of some of the challenges that were faced during the formation of our country. You have to realize, we have to realize that half the nation wanted to stay with the monarchy and half the nation wanted to become independent. But enough of the leaders saw the power of the independence over the dependency and the subjectivity of the monarchy. Monarchy being the kingdom, the King of England. Okay. And what ultimately transpired in all of that was the birth of a nation. Now, I want you to understand something. In 250 years, what was once the subjects of the monarchy of the United Kingdom, or the King of England, outgrew it, became a technological giant, became the most powerful, the wealthiest, the most prosperous nation, state this world has ever seen. The greatest military might on the planet, the greatest culture, the greatest government. At the time, and I'm digressing here, but just indulge me. At the time our nation was formed, the notion of the consent of the governed was as foreign to governments as anything. No government that had ever existed until that moment allowed the people to have power over the government. That is one of the absolute treasures of our democratic republic form of government. So talking about taxing the rich, talking about taking from the rich and giving to the poor is antithetical to the kingdom of heaven. I didn't say giving to the poor was. The idea of taking from the rich, giving to the poor is antithetical to the kingdom of heaven. Incentivizing the wealthy to take care of the poor is the kingdom's model. If you want the wealthy to help the poor, incentivize, make it easier for the wealthy to share their wealth. Think about that. How simple is that? But no, they want to accuse the wealthy of being greedy and not giving enough. So they want to take what the wealthy has to give to the poor. And what they ended up doing is taking from the wealthy until the wealthy says, I've had enough. And now they don't have anything because what they took, they used for something else. Make it make sense, and then we'll both know. Well, listen, beloved, I know this idea is not necessarily your traditional message for church. But again, you know, you don't come here for church. I'm sure you don't. But it is absolutely a part of the kingdom. And it is absolutely a part of what Mother and Father would have you to understand about the kingdom's approach to this idea of taking care of the needy, as well as holding the needy accountable, as well as allowing the wealthy to share their wealth as they see fit. So with that being said, beloved, I want to thank you. I do appreciate you taking this last 48 minutes to join with me, to be a part of the broadcast. I really want to thank you for doing that. I don't see any comments in the broadcast that anyone has made, but I do want to say thank you so much for joining me. I want to encourage you, don't fall victim to this idea that you can take from the wealthy and give to the poor and have the poor get better for that. You can't do that. It doesn't happen. It never has happened, and it never will happen. Okay? When we allow the wealthy to pay, yes, their fair share. Don't let anybody define what fair is for you. You define what's fair, as I've done. And what's fair is what's legally responsible for them to pay. That's fair. And I welcome anyone to share their thoughts, even come on the program if you'd like. And we can have that discussion around how we can address this issue. More than willing, more than happy to have that discussion. I'll put my contact information in the posts, both on Facebook and on YouTube, that you can reach out and contact me. But I'd love to hear from you. Well, listen, thank you so very much. I really do appreciate it. And thank you for taking a few minutes out of your schedule as we shared with you truths of the kingdom from an apostolic perspective. Until next time, be well, be blessed, and we'll see you again next Sunday morning.
Thank you for joining us today for the Kingdom Voice broadcast. Your presence made all the difference. Please know that we don't take your presence or participation lightly. We know you could have chosen to be any a number of places this morning, but you chose to be with us, and we are so grateful. For those of you that would give a gift of any size, Apostle Bellany would like to give you a copy of his book that he co-authored with Apostle Vincent Poole and his wife Jolynn Poole, titled Kingdom 101, Revelational Truths of the Kingdom of God. For a gift of any size, simply email us at lcbellany@yahoo.com, and we will rush out a copy to you. Thank you again for joining us, and we hope to see you again next Sunday morning at 10:30 Central Standard Time. God bless you, and thank you for your support.